Very good evening to all of you, and it's so good to see all of you. Welcome to Watr. It is my joy today, this evening, to introduce Mr. Terry Ghani. But yeah, give him a round of applause, thank you. But before I invite him to come on stage, just a little bit of introduction about our esteemed speaker. Terry Ghani is what he calls himself a humanitarian evangelist. Right? He is also a TEDx and also a keynote speaker, international speaker. And he's also a visionary founder of what we call Humanity Inc. Foundation based in Sydney. Now his passion really lies, in eliciting global awareness in this two-pronged strategy. His love is for the youthful, who are change makers like you and me, all right, to resolve, all right, we're all still young, right, to resolve humanitarian challenges. And he also challenges the public and private sectors to really look into capitalism, to take a more cautious approach, and to encourage them and to embrace technologies, innovative technologies, and to deliver sustainable solutions. So without further ado, let's put our hands together again and warmly welcome Mr. Terry Ghani on stage.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to be here today. Thank you, Pastor. I need a bit of help from everybody. I just want you to pick up this thing that you love so much, the one that you spend a lot of time on. This is not your spouse, this is not your boyfriend or girlfriend. This is the mobile phone. And what we're going to do is everybody stand up with your mobile phone. This is a great exercise. So stand up with your mobile phone, hold both hands on the mobile phone, turn it to your left, turn it to your right, turn it back as far as you can, turn it forward, put it in your pocket and put it away. Really nice because none of us can say that we don't spend time with it. As a matter of fact, we spend more time with it than the people we love, which is really strange, sadly. Ladies and gentlemen, this is really an honor because I came here the last time when it was Malik Ali, I think, speaking, and I said, the kind of people that you bring on stage have been amazing, and I'm really honored to be here. But before we start, I just want to get everybody to understand where I come from. A lot of people say, Terry, what kind of name is that? Terry Ghani. Are you Christian? Are you Buddhist? Are you Muslim? Well, whenever I fill up forms, when it comes to religion, I put there love, because I really believe in the religion of love, which is, I think, what religions teach us. Yeah, everybody here will attest to that. When they say race, and I put there 100 meters. Because when they say sex, no experience. Thank you. Maybe that's yours. So just to help you on, let me show you exactly where I'm from and what I'm made out of. This is something which all of us will discover. Is every single person that you meet. Doesn't matter whether it's a person on the street, like me, I take public transport all the time. And the people I meet every day are different at different times, which include foreign workers, a lot of them, yeah? And I sit there and just watch these foreign workers day in, day out, and I realize the life that they lead and how blessed I am not to be them, yeah? So if you think about this, then everybody has a role in this world. So what are we doing about it, yeah? So let's discover all the teachers that you can find. So I'll start with the elder teachers. There are a lot of elder people here today, I'm sure. I'm included. No elder people. No elder people. So in my elder group, which is very fascinating, is the people who made me. And the people who made me are the ones, obviously, that gave birth to me. Yeah? They also made me who I am today. And really, I'm grateful to them. Unfortunately, they're not with us anymore. They're lovely people. If they were in this hall, I would be so grateful for you to see them and hear their words, because their words made me who I am. Just again, back to the guy on the right, not the handsome one on the left. The guy on the right, the little guy on the right with the Mickey Mouse ears, is me. So shy, totally introverted. That's what I am as I grew up. Very, very shy, very introverted. Look, holding my pants. Yeah? Those ears seem, I think I was born with very large ears and then my head filled up. That's why they're not quite even. But also, Dumbo elephant ear. Teeth. I was just talking to somebody in the bathroom just now. I got very, very crooked teeth, and reason being, I have a confession. I was on the bottle until I was 7 years old. That's why my teeth are very crooked, and that's why I've got an overbite. But guess what? I'm still on the bottle. Oh no, just kidding. Not that bad. And I was very tiny. So how did this tiny Dumbo person become 6'2"? Well, my mother said it's probably because I was fed long grain rice all this while. So as I grew up, my growing up was amazing. That's my parents at their wedding. And if you look at the crowd, sorry, it's not very big, but it was very United Nations. This is way, way, way a long time ago, and it was such a mixed crowd already, because my mother is Burmese Chinese, my father is Javanese. Now, my contribution to this country, that automatically makes you Malay. But to me, there's no real such thing as Malay. It's such a mixture of everything. Yeah. But then I grew up having all that. We lived in Penang. Part of being in Penang was living next door to the Buddhist temple. So I would go to Buddhist Sunday school, and then I would go to St. Xavier's Institution for my education. I went to catechism classes. I'm such a really mixed up person. And it was really interesting because the first time I ever went to a mosque was I was 40 plus. My father passed away. So my education in terms of everything was about experience. Yeah? And I think that's what all of us should have. And this is what I grew up with. My father, born in white, basically did something very unusual. He was invited while working in Singapore, before I became Singapore, with the British government. It's a bit off. Anyway, those kids in the audience, this is going to be interesting. Those kids in the audience here, if you recognize this person, he is the current king of Brunei. And the rest of them are his siblings. So my father was just like that movie, Yul Brynner in King and I. Very much like that. So my parents actually helped to bring up the royal family of Brunei. They were all little kids, and my older siblings were in the same class with them. They were all at the back. So the age gap between my oldest brother and me is almost 30 years. My oldest brother could be my father. As a matter of fact, he was one of my guiding lamps, right? But the beauty of it all is I am what they call a happy accident. Because the fact that I'm 30 years difference meant that my parents conceived when in Brunei there was still no TV. The evenings were a bit boring. So that was really wonderful. So we grew up in the palace grounds, and in the palace grounds we also saw a different side of life. The Brunei government and the Brunei Sultan and his siblings were very generous people. All throughout our lives, even my mother, even after she retired, they would invite her to go back to Brunei for events, which is quite amazing. And let's take a look at what my parents look like. Now you see where I got the looks from. Not from my father, obviously, more my mother. Yeah, so she's Burmese Chinese. And you can see that their demeanor, they're very happy people. And so all of us grew up really loving and loving everybody else. And that's the reason why I'm here, because I love being here. Now, that's my father's full name, but we all call him Kong Kong. Why? Because the influence of Chinese was very strong. We all speak Hokkien because we are from Penang as well. He was given honorifics, which, being a very humble person, he never asked anybody to call him with his title. He was just, uncle or Kong Kong. But this is what he taught us, all of us. Integrity is everything. It's not about when people are watching, it's about everything that you did even when people's not watching. Yeah, that's very important. Here's the other thing that he felt very strongly about, and the reason why he felt that even though we were mixed family, we would all grow up being Malaysians. It wasn't about race, it wasn't about color. And this is something that all of us must remember. Yeah, we're all the same. But the one that really stuck to me was this. English is your passport to a world of infinite possibilities. And this was really weird because we were technically a Malay family. And in a typical Malay family, he would speak Malay, Bahasa Malaysia. But he said, no, in our family, we only speak English. And of course, all our relatives and all said, oh, you guys are a bit very atas. That you don't speak Bahasa, you don't speak your mother tongue. But the reason for that is because he already knew that that's the way we go forward. And guess what? He's absolutely right. I've now seen all the countries in Asia, the ones that took English seriously, are moving forward much faster. Now, Ama, whose real name is Kwei Sehan, spelled with a Q. Now, she was a very much people person, just like what I've become, very much a people. You can see it in the eyes. First time I went to Burma, I saw her face everywhere because everybody looked like her. They've got the same cheek, same look. Ama, Ama, Ama. And it was really, really wonderful. But there was years of this passed on. So she had this thing called the sliding ham technique. And this is one of the things that was amazing. So we were invited to the Peak in Hong Kong by some ambassador or whatever. And it was one of these big events. And then tea was served. And tea was served in this beautiful 2-3 tiered rack. And it was ham sandwiches. Now, my parents, even though they were very liberal, didn't eat pork. And my mom took the ham sandwiches, she put a napkin there, and while she was having a conversation with the host, she quietly pulled out the ham and left it under the cucumber on the plate and ate the sandwich without the ham, without having to create such a fuss, which you would probably see today if someone did that. Yeah? And that's called grace. And all of us need to practice that. Yeah, something I learned from that. So, what your parents do, you do. What your parents feel, you feel. And that's very critical about the people who teach you. This is discovery of everything that you learn. There's no such thing as an evil person, only the evil in him, and learn to rid him of it. Now, this is very critical because it made me see every single human being that I've met in my life. Be they people who treated me really bad, I found that I could only see that evil in him. And I really tried to find ways to get rid of it. Sometimes I failed, sometimes I didn't. But it meant that you see people in a different light. And I think that's critical for all of us to do. So I'm sure a lot of you do that, yeah? This is something very few parents, especially the tiger parents, would ever say to their kids, right? Not getting a university isn't the end of the world because I didn't get to go to university. Choose to be whatever makes you truly happy. How many parents would say that to their children today? Very few. Wow! Yes, give me a hand. What's your name? Cindy. You should really meet her. Ah, can you attest to what your mom says? That's brilliant. Oh, that's so wonderful. You see, the moment she said that, it stuck to my mind. And throughout my whole life, I went to seek all kinds of things that would make me happy. And today, I'm happy doing exactly what I like. Yeah? But does it fit into earning me an income, doing the things that really matter? Yes, it does. It's called Ikigai. It really matches. Yeah? True grit is something which is very emotional to me, because while I talk about parents, they've both passed on, is somebody else. And this man who looks like Moshe Dayan, for those people who are slightly younger will remember Moshe Dayan, but he's not Moshe Dayan, he's my oldest brother. This is the guy who could be my father. Yeah? He's almost 30 years my senior. He was a very senior lecturer in University Science Malaysia, USM Penang. What's so significant about him? Well, he did everything the wrong way. He broke tradition, became a professor, but he was inflicted with a very rare cancer. He lost one eye, that's why he has an eye patch, because one eye had been removed. And after they removed that eye, his other eye was removed because the cancer kept spreading. And because it's part of the optic nerve, it followed down the spine and eventually he couldn't walk. So he was rendered into a wheelchair. But throughout the entire episode of 6 years, did he stop working? No, he didn't. Not only was he a lecturer, but he was also a speaker that traveled around the world talking about education. So that is true grit. Somebody who's passionate about what they want to do, and they kept doing it despite everything going against them. And I think all of us have this in us. All of us can do this, only if you put your mind to it. So that's his name. And one of the things that he said, and he used me as an example, he said, well, this guy has double degrees, he's got a PhD also, and then he's got the extreme end of a brother who didn't go to university. So he used me as an example of somebody who, despite not having gone to university, still struck out and did what he wanted to do and achieve what he wanted to achieve. And then part of his thesis was to show people that sometimes you can't put people who are not scholastic into a scholastic environment, and vice versa. And today, and only today, people are starting to recognize this and change the education system. Yeah? So that's something I've learned. The work-life teachers now, this is where it gets a bit more fun. Resourcefulness. Now, my father had a sense of humor. So because I didn't go to university, one of the things he did to me was he said, Terry, you are 17, 18 years old, you're going to go to work. So guess what my first job was? He got me in his friend's company, which was an insurance investigation and adjustment company. You all know what that is? Yeah, basically somebody has an accident, you basically have to verify who did the accident or who was guilty in the accident, blah, blah, blah. So I was a kid, like an adjuster. I was a kid, and I had to ride a bike together with my colleague off Penang, travel all the way to the Thai border to look at cases and talk to people and interview people. This was in the 70s and 80s, which meant there was no ways, no internet, nothing. Which means that the file that you have just had a ridiculous address that said something like Ceruk Lima Batu Empat. What does that mean? There's no postcode, nothing. So you got to figure out, because you got to talk to people on the street, ask questions again and again to find who you need to find. And it was a nightmare to do that. But guess what? It made you very resourceful. And here's a picture of what the house will look like, kind of people you interview. Yes. So you may come from a world where you used to live in a palace, and suddenly you need to speak to people who didn't even have a home. It humbled you. Yeah? It made you able to speak to anybody of any status or any level. I was very thankful. Although at that time I really hated the job. Yeah? The truth shall set you free. Now this is interesting. Those guys I talked to earlier, I worked for a company called Mastella. They were the biggest PR company in the world. And they were wonderful to me. They basically got me to work in different countries, including New York. I stayed with them for 10 years. And on the 10th year, 3 of my colleagues decided, hey, we're going to start our own agency. Because after working for a multinational agency, we realized that, typical multinational agencies, you have to part with your profits back to the US, which means you couldn't hold all your profits. So we said, we should be having our own agency. So we conspired to start our own agency. And one day when we walked to the office, our boss said, you, come to my office. And then we sat down there, his name is C.T. Hughes, passed on. And then we said, why is he calling us? And then he looked at us and he took our employment letters and threw it at us and says, look at Article 6.2. It says, if you are starting an agency of your own, you're fired immediately. And so within that second, we lost our jobs. Did we have an agency? Did we have clients? Did we have money? Nothing, zero. So we were thrown on the streets with nothing in our pockets. And this is where the truth really set us free, because we went out and started getting clients immediately and started building our agency. So it's really important for people to understand that sometimes you need to share the truth, or sometimes the truth will find you. Yeah? So that's a real huge learning. This is where we started an agency which made a lot of money. We were very, very successful. We were also very arrogant and very proud. So what did we do with our money? We went and bought properties. This was way before the crash. So we started buying lots of properties, huge leverage from the bank, because the bank says, you guys are doing very well. Here's a loan, here's a loan. So they kept giving us lines of credit. We bought more properties, and we even had an office in the swanky Bangsa area. And guess what? The financial crisis in 1998, everything collapsed. Our clients couldn't pay us, and we were stuck with properties we couldn't pay for. And it was a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. So how did we survive? We survived by making sure that as directors, we didn't pay ourselves, we only paid our own people. All our staff got everything they needed because they were the backbone of the company, so they made sure that everybody was paid. And this is the beginning of something I learned called heart-centered leadership. It's not about somebody who walks into a brand new company and hires 7,500 staff straight away because he feels that they are redundant. We know the person, I wouldn't describe the person, but there are many people today in the tech industry that come in and just fire people without any empathy. We did the opposite. And why? Because over the years, our staff were amazing, they stuck with us. Today, if I started a new company, they would automatically work with us again. And that's what heart-centered leadership is about, really taking care of people. Here's a picture of a typical kopitiam. A lot of people ask me, hey Terry, every time we walk in the kopitiam anywhere, the storekeepers at the kopitiam seem to know you. They call you by name, and they seem to know your orders, and they always smile at you. How do you do that? You tip them money? I said, no, I don't tip anybody. Then how do you get the kind of response? Heart-centered leadership, where you treat people with kindness, with empathy. You get to know the person. Yeah? How many of us are guilty of doing this? Hey, kopi here. Hello, kopi. That's how we order. And when it comes, do we say thank you? Yeah. Do we say thank you? Hardly. Yeah. But that's just us. We're so used to it because everybody else does that. But just because everybody else does that doesn't mean you need to do that. No. The reason why they remember me is because in the sea of thousands of people in the kopitiam, only one person does that. They will remember you. Yeah? So try doing that. I'm sure a lot of you, do that. But keep doing it everywhere you go. You find that response. It's a beautiful response. Because guess what? They will want to know about you. They will ask about you. Yeah? And that's heart-centeredness. Very critical. You apply this to your company as well. So when I go to the 5-star restaurants, the same thing happens to me. And again, you say, hey, Terry, you give them a 100 ringgit tip. No, I'm from Penang, very kiam siap. I don't give tips unless I'm in America. But I get the same response because you look at the person in the eye when you talk to them. Most people, when they order, they're not even looking. Yeah? Simple things like this is so important. And that's heart-centeredness. My calling my brand. Now, this is a fascinating story. Some of you probably heard this. A lot of people say, hey, how did you become a speaker? How did you do TEDx? Well, actually by accident. Remember, I'm the introverted, very shy person. So when I started working for the multinational PR company, I was the token Bumiputra. And my colleagues, most of them were Westerners, and we had a project. And the project was to announce the building of the Twin Towers. That time, Twin Towers wasn't even built, it was a race course. And then they said, Terry, you need to do a presentation because you are the only Malaysian and the only Bumiputra, and you got to speak Bahasa. I said, have you heard my Bahasa before? My Bahasa is really bad. They said, no choice, the rest of us are Americans or whatever. So I was pushed in front, and guess who I had to present this to? The Dr. Mahathir. None other than Dr. Mahathir. And if you've met him before, he has a scowl on his face, he's very serious, and he's a detailed person. So off I went on stage like this, and I'm like shaking, and then I started with my best bahasa, and you could see him just sort of squinting like that, and he was waiting for me for about a minute to hopefully make my bahasa better, and then I was still really bad. Then finally he said, stop. What's your name? He said, Terry Ghani. Is that your full name? I said, no, my real Malay name is Ramli Ghani bin Abdul Ghani Jamil. That's my full name. But my parents gave me the name Terry, and it's stuck. It cannot be registered because I'm not Christian. And so everybody calls me Terry. Anybody calls me Ramli, it's the police. So he said, so your name is Terry Ghani, that everybody knows you by. I like you very much. So I'm like, why? This is what he looks like, by the way. Really, this is what he looks like. And so I'm wearing my pants, and then he says, I like you very much. I said, why, sir? Because Terry Ghani is a unique name. Terry Ghani. Ramli Ghani, there are millions of Ramli Ghani. Terry Ghani should be your brand. You should keep that name, and that name will take you very far. This was 1980. Many years later, this is history. So I have something to thank this man, even though not many people like him anymore, but that doesn't matter. So that's a powerful lesson. Yeah, very, very powerful lesson. Now, here is what has happened to the shy, introverted guy. Remember, he became introverted, but he also became a TED speaker. Because if you really believe in doing something, and this is where all of us who have faith, if you have faith in yourself and faith in God, it comes easily because you don't give up. Yeah? Somebody who didn't have a degree, somebody who was shy, introverted, can still get to where you want to. And this is, again, with a lot of love, a lot of encouragement through my life. Dark side of humanity. Now, all I shared was the nice side, the one that really inspires, makes us really feel warm inside. But there's also a very dark side. Why is Terry showing this inside of a car? Well, I was with a company, and it was a very, very high-end company, and I had a co-director, and the co-director brought me for a meeting with the minister. I did a presentation, and it was fantastic. The minister loved the project. And then after which, this other director of mine said, Terry, today my BMW 7 Series in the workshop and my Porsches with my wife, can I hitch a ride with you? Now, this was when things were not very good with me and I didn't have much money, although I was director of the company. So I had a very beat up all-wheel drive. It's not even my car, it was a loan from my brother-in-law. It's a bit like that, very scruffy. So imagine, I brought my director towards my car, and it was old, it was dented, and I opened the door for him. He stood there, and he looked exactly in the car, and he refused to get in the car. I was like, get in the car, I'll take you for a drive back to the office. And he just stared at the car, and I couldn't understand why he was staring. Finally, when I started the car, he sat in the car, and throughout the whole journey, he didn't say a single thing. 15-minute ride back to the office, not one word. And then, when we went back to the office, he just shut his door, disappeared. I'm a co-director. Over the next few weeks, they organized things to humiliate me, to make sure that I would leave the company. Why would they do that? Because I wasn't on the same path as them, in terms of my wealth, in terms of my spending, and it wasn't good for them. That's what humanity can be. Yeah, exactly. At that time, I couldn't believe it. My brain was reading back, saying, why would anybody do that? But people do that. Why do you think in this country people buy very expensive cars? Why do you think they flash all their luxuries? Because that's part of business. And if you don't fit, you're out. Yeah? This is one of many examples I've gone through. That's humanity. And you think to myself, is there something that we can do to save humanity? Well, I'm sure we can. I have faith in humanity, lots of faith. So, as some of you know, I have a son with special needs. He's 30 years old now. His name is Omar. That's him in the middle. This is in Taman 2. So, he is autistic with a few other things. So he wanted to go for a walk in the park. And he was walking in the park, and he saw this group of young Indian men playing football. And he says, "Eddie, can I play football?" And I'm like, "Okay, but we should ask them first." And then the moment these young Indian men saw my son, they said, "Hey, come play football." You know what they did? Remember, he's special needs, so he's not quite clear. And they staged everything at the goal post to make sure that he kept scoring the goal again and again and again. And he was so happy doing this. And that photograph was them just having a 5-minute break so that they can repeat this again and again. And he would talk about this for years and years and years. Do we know this Indian man? No. They were just young lads having a good time at night. Yeah? That's humanity. And throughout my life, I've seen this again and again. Yeah? Now, you may know this man. His name is Dr. Uman George. He's the foremost microsurgeon in the country. What is a microsurgeon? If you lose an arm, he can sew it back. If you do a breast operation after cancer, he can sew it back perfectly. He can put your fingers together after it's chopped off. Now, what happened was, this was times were very tough for me financially. My son Omar was playing with some friends and someone pushed him and it sliced off his ear.
Oh, no.
And of course the caregivers, there was a beautiful Christian group that were caregivers, they kept rushing him from one clinic to another in Tamatun. But of course the clinic doctors would look, we can't do this. I mean, dangling here, it's not like something you just take your suture and whatever and sew it back. You can't do that. And then finally, they were embarrassed. They called me up and said, "Terry, can you take your son back? Because we don't know what to do with him." So I rushed him to the hospital. And of course, the medical officer took one look. "I can't do this either." And I said, "Who can do this?" He said, "The microsurgeon." I said, "You have one?" They said, "Yeah, of course we have one." And so we got to call him. It was on Sunday night. So they called. And finally he came. And of course, the moment a microsurgeon walks in the door, ka-ching, ka-ching, all you see was dollar signs because they are professionals and they are in the hundreds of thousands fee, right? And he took one look at it and he says, "We're going to do it now, otherwise he loses his ear." So I couldn't even talk money with him, not that I had much money. So off we wheeled him off to the surgery, did it, stayed overnight. Next day came out, double checked, everything was good. And of course, the bill, how am I supposed to pay? I didn't have insurance for him. And so I remember just freaking out, not being able to even take my son out of the hospital because I can't pay the bill. And guess what? When the bill came, I pulled it up. All I needed to pay was just the peripheral cost of the hospital, the surgery, disposable items. His fee was in the multi-figures, zero, not a cent. I choke up every time I tell the story. He's a good friend of ours now, Dr. Uman George. He says, "Terry, don't tell everybody this." Everybody's going to ask for free back. No, he only does this obviously when he sees a need and he sees someone like Omar with special needs. That restored my faith in humanity, absolutely. And there are millions of Uman Georges in this world. Yes, give him a hand. I'm sure in this crowd there are people with huge hearts here as well. Because among us, there are, I don't call people special needs, I call them amazingly special people. Yeah? And here's the most amazing photograph. My hair stands now. I was living in Vietnam, living here for 7 years. My special needs son came to live with me. Who's that man in front? His name is Dr. Jonathan Abeli. He saved my son once, twice in the hospital in Vietnam because my son was dying from stomach infection. If you look at Jonathan, where do you think he's from? He's Jewish, he's Israeli, he works for the IDF.
Woo!
See, every human being is human. Doesn't matter whether he believes in Netanyahu, that's a different story, but he believes in saving a life, doesn't matter who that life is. And this is what humanity is all about. That all of us are, like my father said, same under the skin. Doesn't matter what our faith is, what nationality we are. And that's a very powerful picture. Until now, he's a good friend of ours. Yeah? And it wasn't him alone. There were 3 Israeli doctors that were attending to my son in Ho Chi Minh City. That's really beautiful. Trust the choices that you make. This is, again, very important. If you can see that very closely, the word is trust. What is that? That's a tattoo. The second tattoo, it says choice. These two tattoos, I didn't do it. My children did it. It's on their arm. Why they decided to do that? Because they went through and experienced a divorce between their mother and me. And it was a choice that we made, which they had to endure. But guess what? After years of going through pain, sorrow, difficulty, challenges, we are all together, even with my new wife. Well, she's not that new anymore. But we as a family come together because we realize that it is in, I'm not sure in your faith, in Islam, a divorce is actually a terrible crime. But a divorce where you are amicable with your ex-spouse cancels that crime, that sin. Isn't that powerful? And so we've done that, and that's something that all of us need to strive for. That just because you go through a divorce doesn't mean that you can't be friends, and you can't be a family again. Yeah. So it's about trust and it's about choice. Every bit of it. Trust the choices you didn't make. Now, those choices I made, we made together. But there are some choices that we didn't make. I had been invited to be a partner of a company in Vietnam, run by a French guy. He was a very amazing, very French, small little guy, and he had the gift of gab. He arrived in Malaysia, invited me to Mandarin Hotel, had a 5-hour conversation over dinner, and the next day he came to my office and said, "Hey, you're the ultimate partner. Would you like to be my partner in Ho Chi Minh City?" And I said, "To do what?" He says, "I fly you all the way to Ho Chi Minh and to Hanoi, and you spend 2 weeks traveling all the way down from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh and meeting the leaders of the country, meet the bankers, meet everybody, so that you know that this is not fake, this is real, that we are going to do business together." What kind of business? It is basically to help the Vietnamese government bring investors to Vietnam. So great. And I'm a marketing person. It was perfect. So for 7 years, I was his partner, and we grew with 6 other partners, and the company grew and grew and grew. There was nothing wrong with it. It was just amazing. But just one day, I discovered that we couldn't find any details about this French partner. He was not on internet. He was nowhere. But we got our salaries. We stayed in 5-star hotels. We stayed in 5-star apartments. We traveled first class, business class. We're like, wow, we feel like James Bond, right? But where's the money coming from? I don't know. Because obviously the money wasn't being generated within the company to that huge amount. So one day I discovered that he pulled a fast one on me, and I decided to leave, and the rest of the partners all left the company. And then he owed us a lot of money. We started looking for him. And every time we called him, he says, "Don't come for me, you come for me, you get in trouble." So like, that was a great ploy to push you away. He said, "If you come looking for me, you get in trouble because you get implicated with me." So what a lie, right? Guess what? This is what we found out. That God quietly made the choice for me. I didn't decide, because imagine if we had gone further with him. This is what we found out. He appeared in the Panama Papers. Do you know what the Panama Papers are? It's where the crooks in the world hide their money. And that's the first time we saw his name anywhere on the internet. He was part of the Panama Papers. He was a smaller version of Jolo. So imagine if we had gone for him, we would all have been implicated. You see how God works? And I'm very grateful. Spiritual teachers, this is really beautiful. Something called intuition. And this works in a way that I never thought. I was a kid, I was 12, 13 years old. How many of you here had a crush on your teacher? Oh, boy. Yeah. And me, typically it was the English teacher. Her name is Miss Wee, and all the boys just loved her. And I remember one day, I was so crazy about her. I wanted to find out where she lived, right? This is in Penang. Yeah. So in Penang, she would drive this little mini car, and one day I was just falling asleep at home, and I had a dream. And the dream was me on my little bicycle from school. I was cycling back, and I saw Miss Wee getting into a little mini. And you know, Penang roads are very narrow, and I remember it was left, right, left, right, left, right. And then I stopped. She drove into her house, into our Ticos. Wow, that's where she lives. Great. And I woke up like, oh, that's a dream. That's just a dream. But I remember every single part of the dream. So guess what? I took my bicycle, railed up this time, and rode through the school, followed all the way back, and guess what? I stopped in Pulau Ticos, and I saw the house, I saw her car number PP1234, and my heart went. Why? Because my dream showed me the real house. That is intuition, so powerful that it's real. And it's kept the living daylight for me because I realized that I had a power that was dangerous. And as a kid, I didn't want to have it because it meant one day maybe I could foretell my parents dying. And I just shut it off from me. But this is what Miss Wee looks like today. That's Miss Wee. She's now closer to 80, I think. Still lovely as usual. These are all my school teachers. So again, that was the beginning of my spiritual path. And then it got even stronger when I faced my mortality at quite a young age. This was very difficult because it was a choice. This looks like a beautiful place to go swimming. It is in Ulu Langat. And I'm an outdoor person. I love going to these places. And in this lovely river, I would swim in and out. It's very safe, 100% safe, because the current pushes you to the shallow end. So I was going to take my whole family. My ex-wife at the time was still married to me. She was pregnant with our first child, and my in-laws, and my nephew, and his 14-year-old friend. Great, so off we went. And guess what? I jumped in first to make sure that everything was okay. No problem. I came to the shore, and I said to my nephew, jump! So he jumped. He jumped in, and then he was swimming towards me, and he's a very strong swimmer. As he swam towards me, like this, he was going backwards. So I thought, come on, 14-year-old boy, stop pulling the stunt. This is a joke, right? And I noticed, it's not a joke, because he was disappearing into the waterfall, and he disappeared. I said, oh my God, this is not a joke. And then before I can say stop, the other boy, his friend, jumped in as well. And both of them were sucked into the pool. And then what do? I couldn't scream, because nobody could hear me. The sound of the rushing water was so loud, right? So I just jumped, just in the flash, to try and pull them out. It took me, I don't know how long, but we would churn like in a washing machine over and over again. And it was really, yes, very scary. But eventually, it sped us out. But that's when, in the time underwater, the only thought was everything was going black, and I saw just a white light. And my thought was, how can I even say sorry to my unborn child in my wife's womb? What would I say to him? Because he never even saw his father. Yeah. So embracing my mortality was really an awakening. Then in came this thing called sacrifice. This was when things were very, very tough financially. And there was one time when I had to take my special needs son to Klein, basically to his special needs home. And we had this ritual. We would buy a nice dinner for him, send him back to Klein. He was very happy. Now, he said, like typical, wants to have Japanese food. But I couldn't afford Japanese food at the time. I was really, really broke. And he said, no, I want Japanese food. And of course, with a special needs person, if you don't deliver what he wants to deliver, he'll have a meltdown. And the next week, with the caregivers, he'll give them a hard time, a very difficult time. So I was like, oh, what am I going to do? So I went to Mutiara Damansara, parked my car in an open space, really an open space, and basically brought him into the curve and got one of those fast food Japanese restaurants, really, really cheap. I think for 6 ringgit or whatever, I could get something simple. And for a special needs person, it's not about the sashimi, it's about a simple Japanese meal. And I was very happy. After that, we were walking back to the car. Now the car was parked very far away, like that, in an open field, because I couldn't afford to pay the parking, it's very expensive. So we were walking, 7:30 in the evening, and then my son literally pulled my sleeve and said, Daddy, can I have some money? So I looked at him and said, what do you want money? We just had a Japanese meal. He says, no, I want money to give the beggar. So I looked at him and said, there is no beggar. This is Mutiara Damansara. Very well. It's IKEA, the curve. There's no beggars. There's only child kid beggars. Not here. He said, no, Daddy, there's a beggar there. And true enough, he pointed. There was a beggar, just like that, squatting by the roadside. I thought to myself, that's so weird. Why would a beggar like that be sitting in the middle of nowhere in Mutiara Damansara? And guess what? I opened my wallet, since there's a beggar, and there was only 1 ringgit left in my wallet, literally 1 ringgit. And didn't know what to laugh and cry, and like, what am I supposed to do? So I took that 1 ringgit, gave it to Omar. Omar was very happy, ran after the guy and gave it to him. Now the guy, literally, remember his back was to me, so he took money from Omar, he turned around, and he looked straight into my eyes. He looked like this. I'm not kidding. This is an AI generated picture, but this is the closest I can get of him. He was, I think, Chinese, long hair, white, overhead, beard. He had white clothes all the way to the bottom, but I could smell him. He was where Teo was standing, and from that distance, you're not smelly, but I could smell this man. So he's not a fake beggar, he was a real person. And he just stared at me, just like this man, in my eyes. His lips didn't move. His lips didn't move, but I could hear his voice in my head. His voice said, we just wanted to find out, would you still give when you have nothing left to give? Would you sacrifice when you have nothing left to sacrifice? At that moment, my tears just broke down. And then Omar saw me and came and just gave me a big hug. He said, Daddy, are you okay? And I was shaken because the man didn't open his lips, but his voice was in my head. And then I thought, hey, 1 ringgit, what can 1 ringgit do? Can you buy a drink for 1 ringgit? No, nothing. There's nothing he can do with 1 ringgit. I thought my house is nearby. I can go and make some sandwich or whatever and bring it to him. I turned around, less than 6-7 seconds, he was gone. There was nothing there. Remember? Huge open field. And that shook me completely. And then I realized this was the beginning of many things that would happen in my life, where similar kind of people would walk into my life and do exactly what he did. I can't describe them, but he went on and on and on. And I knew there was a calling that perhaps I need to use all my experiences and share them. That's why I'm here today. Embracing impermanence, detachment. I don't know whether many of you have done this, and I'm sure the older ones may have. This good friend with a C came into my life. COVID. I had it twice. And one time, it almost wiped me out. My wife and my daughter were in England. My ex-wife and my other daughter were here. And they couldn't even see me. I was stuck in my apartment and I was dying. And I remember that night, I couldn't breathe. I was in pain. And they called all the hospitals. There was no room at all. I said, what am I going to do? But there was nothing I can do. And so I was bracing for the fact that I may not be around tomorrow morning. You know what my first thought was? Am I decently dressed? Just in case somebody finds my body. Next thought was, quite practical, right? Next thought was, key. Who's got my key? The neighbor upstairs who comes to water my plants when I'm traveling. Oh, it's a woman. She's going to see my body. And the next one is my daughter. She's 30 years old. She's also got a key. And the next thought was, will I be okay if I die tomorrow? Have I done enough for my family? Have I made enough money? Have I touched the right hearts? Have I done all those things? And guess what the answer was? Terry, they will cry the day you die. They will cry for about a week, after which it will just be a memory and a photograph sitting on the mantelpiece. Yes, they might visit your grave in Cheng Beng or Hari Raya or whatever, All Souls Day, but that's about it. After a while, you're just a memory. So I became very, very attached to the fact that I can't let it go. And it's the most liberating feeling you would ever have. Something I recommend. But not to get COVID. So somebody asked me after that, so Terry, what's your definition of success? Is it about making billions? Well, here is my definition of success. It's not about how much you have in the bank, but about how many lives you may have touched, even if it meant a smile to a random stranger that lifted their spirits and altered the course of their day. It's not about doing the great things, it's about doing the small things, including meeting a stranger on the street and say, smiling at them and say, hey, dress looks nice, or your shirt looks nice, or you look so radiant today. That could have just been at the moment where the person really needed to hear that. That's all it takes. And the more you do that, and guess what that is? It's called kindness. Does it cost you anything? No, not a cent. And yet it's so powerful. Yeah? That's my version of success, my inspiration. So a lot of people ask, Terry, you do all these things, you got a foundation, you do all these things. Where is your inspiration coming from? Well, it came from this tiny little thing called Uma Shui Anderson Ghani. That's my little daughter. She was born 14 years ago, she's 14 now. When she was about 6 or 7, she was watching a documentary which was about the planet Earth and what we're doing to it. And she was upset. She ran upstairs and she went to the floor. She was lying on the floor, crying. And then my wife and I went up and said, darling, what's wrong? Why are you so sad? And she cried and she said, I don't want to be here anymore. She said, what do you mean? I want to die. And I said, why do you want to die? She says, because you guys have ruined the planet. There's nothing left for me, my generation. You have completely destroyed it. You don't care about us. And that's why I started my foundation, because of her. She's now that age, she's now 14. And she is one of those people who are helping the world change. Yeah, that's why I started the foundation. And that's my foundation. We've reached 100,000 kids. We do these very powerful talks inspired by the water to ensure the children that things are being done to help change your world. Because the media will keep telling you horror stories, but they don't tell you the real stories that are positive stories. That's why suicide rate is very high. So we need to change that. Here's my greatest teacher, not me. That's Omar. He's now 30 years old, last as of 1 month ago. Why is he my greatest teacher? Because he's the teacher who appears only when the student is reading. I never understood this. I'm not sure whether it's Confucius, Lao. Someone said that the teacher will only appear when the student is reading. My teacher is Omar. Why? Because all these things he taught me, every one of them. And this is a small list of the many things that he forced me to learn. All of it was basically because he's not autistic, he's psychotic, he's schizophrenic, and he's bipolar. He's also very dangerous if you don't catch him at the right time. He puts all of us in danger. He makes our life miserable. I hated him for the longest time because I could see that he was part of the reason he destroyed my first marriage. He was about to do the same thing to my second. But today, I've embraced all of it and I returned the love to him unconditionally, and everything has changed. Isn't that how beautiful it is? He is my greatest teacher. I know I have 5 minutes, so I'm going to run through. This is about our humanity. This is a very simple picture. If today I ask this group of people, can we all change the light bulb? Instantly, somebody in the group will take charge. That's fantastic leadership. Yeah? The only difference is that some leaders are good, some leaders are of a different sort. Because you have this thing called healthy narcissism, which makes a good leader, like all good leaders. And then you have in the middle something called narcissism, pure narcissism, which are people with very little empathy. By the way, I can leave the slides with you. And then you have the other one, which is very extreme, is a disorder called narcissistic personality disorder. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this is because people with very strong narcissistic tendencies tend to want to become leaders. If you look at political leaders across the world, most of them have these traits. If you look at corporate leaders in this world, most of them have these traits. So it's a very fine line before they become somebody who doesn't care. And this is why I started my foundation, to teach young people that. Be aware of this so that we don't have leaders that will have no empathy for people or the planet. Yeah. This is a very good picture. A lot of these people have those personalities. So now you understand why the world is in the state it is in. Yeah? These are the quick lessons learned. Like Omar, we're all neuroatypical at some point of our lives, some more than others. many unconscious of it. Neuroatypical means someone with some kind of disorder. Yeah? All of us have some. We see life from tinted lenses, by our experience, blurred by our pain. Once we understand this, there's room for understanding and possibly forgiveness. And I think that's very important. The last one is heart-centered self-leadership, is where you apply critical thinking to your choices and filter out pain and trauma with our hearts. I think this is so important because we all know this very well. Yeah? When we can all forgive because they don't know. Yeah? A lot of people don't know what they're doing. And that's very critical. So I'm going to end with this slide. With all that's changing today, we want to make sure that everybody understands that the only thing that's going to keep us alive with AI and technology is one thing that AI and technology can never replace: your hearts. All our hearts and all our life. Right? And kindness is not being naive, vulnerability is not being weak, and compassion and empathy are not about being a pushover, because corporate leaders will tell you the opposite, that they're wrong. This is true. Yeah. All of us have that really powerful power, and that power is called being human. Yeah. And I will leave you with this. One day, you will tell your story of how you overcome what you're going through and will become part of someone else's survival guide. Tonight, I shared with you my story. Yeah? So what's your story? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry, for this sharing an amazing journey that you have had, and it's truly inspirational. Just to start off the Q&A session, just like to pose the first question to you. You just mentioned that your daughter is the one who motivated you to establish this foundation called Humanity Inc. Would you be able to share with us what is the notable success or a impactful project that Humanity Inc. have undertaken, and probably some key lessons to take away with it?
Thank you very much. So Humanity Inc. is actually registered in Australia. A lot of people say, why Australia? Because the first funder that came to fund us was a billionaire, and he's not from this country. And when he came, he spent a weekend with me, we explained what we were going to do. And he says, Terry, I love your Humanity Inc. Foundation, very good. But if you want to take my money, don't register in Malaysia. I said, why? Malaysia's got a very bad name for foundations. The word yayasan is very bad. So we had it registered in Australia because I have a partner in Australia, so we had it done there. So initially what we did was, it was based on my TED Talk. My TED Talk is titled, Why I Believe the Only People Who Can Save the Planet Are the Youth of the World. Isn't that true? Because my generation, we didn't really do a good job preserving the planet. We were supposed to be the curators and the ones that are custodians and then pass it to the next generation. Well, we were too greedy. We've exploited the planet to the point of no return. So now, with this foundation, the whole idea is we do talks, and they're very powerful talks. And the talks were to show, number one, to the children that all that you see in the media, which is all negative news, 99% of the news is negative, because negative news sells very well. Pauline knows this, she was in PR before, that when you talk to the media, nobody talks about good news, because nobody bothers. If you talk about bad news, about someone sleeping with somebody or something negative, straight away everybody likes it. And so the kids today are growing up, because with their phones, they only get very negative media, and it's manipulated. So we, with Humanity Inc., do very powerful 1-hour talks to show the kids that that's not true. There are solutions that are already in place, technologies that are in place that's changing the world forward very quickly, but we just never heard about it. And we also show them that instead of just becoming a 9-to-5 employee, how about being an employee in an organization, not necessarily an NGO, any organization. You could be a lawyer, like you, and work for an organization that serves something that helps humanity. And then I show the kids the salary scale of these jobs were on par with everybody else. So it's a fallacy, especially for parents think, oh, don't work for those companies or organizations serving humanity. Don't make money one now. That's all wrong. That's change. Today, my oldest daughter, 33, she gets very well paid because her NGO that looks after tigers is funded by international funders. So she gets a salary like anybody at her own performance level. You see the difference? Not during our time. But our time, anybody with an NGO looks like ragged shirt, long hair, never bathe. Yeah, those are the old NGO, not today.
Thank you for the answer. Any questions from the floor?
Thank you very much, Terry. I think you've shown all of us the bright side, the good side of humanity. But many times we go about seeing the dark side of humanity. Like for example, people weaponize human rights and make it to sort of become a lobby for the minority groups and many, I don't need to name them. So how does one really look at humanity as the way you look at it? To be able to differentiate between what's the dark side of it and what's the light side of it?
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Pastor. That was a very good question. I was very fortunate to be invited to another session last weekend with UOB Bank. They invited very young people to something like Speaker's Corner in London, where young people were allowed to get on stage. And for 7 minutes, they can say whatever they want to say. And as you pointed out, Pastor, that a lot of young people have a lot of anger in them. They want to share these things. Some in the right direction, some maybe not. So there was one group that was very vocal about capitalism. And they were very socialist, extreme left socialists. So I sat with them and I said, you know, when you want to communicate something like that that's very, very radical, you can. But you must always see the full macro picture rather than your one-sided point of view. Why? Because you need to find a way to embrace everybody before you can move forward. Otherwise, you only get pushback. And to do that, you need to find out whatever your cause is, whichever the cause they look at, is how would the other person look at you doing what you do. If you can get into their minds, then it's easier for you to convince them. And of course, it has to be something somewhere, and I told them, rather than go radical, start with somewhere middle of the road first, and slowly build up your case with facts and figures, not just because you're emotive about it. Most people in the Gen Z and millennials are very emotional. Now, while that's great, but without any facts and figures, then you get shot down all the time. And you get detracted by other people who will hijack your cause and then smear you. And then that's the end of it. So that's one of the things that we do. But back to your point, Pastor, there are a lot of issues that's plaguing the world. Some of them are radical and some of them are just because we also need to look at ourselves. Because I'm a boomer and I spent the last 6 months back in Malaysia understanding CEOs today. And guess what? They're not my age anymore. Today's CEO are in their 30s and oldest is 40. And I couldn't even communicate with them initially, but today I can. And their thoughts, their concerns are things I would never ever dream of. That's why all of us need to sort of take off our own mask, our own shields, and say, let's embrace what young people are thinking. Yes, it may be quite radical, but just about the time when we were growing up in the 60s, we thought, our parents thought we were crazy. So it's changed again and again. Thank you, that was a very good question.
Thank you for expounding on that. Just a question, with the intersection of technology
Yes.
and social impact, what challenges have you come across and how do you resolve it, Terry?
On the social side? Yeah. Just now, earlier we were talking about AI. So my group of people, we are proponents of AI. And the reason why we are proponents is because sometimes it is better to embrace a technology that is about to wipe you out rather than fight it. Yeah? Because once you understand the technology and how we can weave it in, it's easier. So back to that A lot of people are fearful that AI is going to take over our lives, take over our jobs and all that. Yes, it will eventually do, but if you understand how AI works or technology works, you embrace it, it actually makes your life better. For instance, I give an example as a lawyer, that today's AI can go into a law firm, say at this time, late in the evening, somebody sends an email and says, "Hi, I want you to represent my case. This is what happened. This is my partner did this to me. I want to sue my partner for this." Now, nobody's in the office, but the AI will take that file and look for all the cases of the same kind of files, and then pull out the cases within the company. It will go to the court and take out in the public domain similar files and case precedents. It can go to UK and pull out all the files and assimilate them and give you a summary of the best cases. And by morning, when the lawyer comes in, not only are all the cases there, it will give you a percentage of whether it's 99% you can win and how much you can make from that win. Isn't that amazing? That's AI. So we, because of the media, will always tell you the bad news. AI is going to take over your job. AI is going to kill the world. Yeah, it can, only if you allow it to. This is something called self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe that it will destroy us, it will, because you've just given it energy to do it. Yeah. So try and embrace it, and there are many ways that people can find around it. Now, during the days when coal was first discovered, people said, "Oh my God, coal is going to change the world." Yes, it did. And then when petrol was discovered, oil and gas was discovered, they said the coal mines will die. Did it die? No, it didn't. Did the coal miners all disappear? No, it didn't. So humanity has an amazing way to jump back and find a way to survive. We are survivors.
Thank you so much. Looks like I don't have to quit my job tomorrow. And just embrace and thank you so much. We really enjoyed your talk. We thank you for sharing your invaluable insights to us. Just give a round of applause to Terry Thank you so much.
Add one thing. I don't know whether anybody in the corporate here, but sorry, this is just a plug for Humanity Inc. So Humanity Inc. is now about to embark on a project where we are taking young people from schools and universities, and we are going to bring them into companies. Why? We want these young people to help you, those people who run companies, to see and look at your company from a child's point of view. Now, child's point of view is unfettered. They have no judgment. Yeah? So they will look at you and say the silliest things, but the silliest thing can be the most amazing ideas. And what we're getting them to actually look at within your company is how your company can embrace sustainability, ESG, which is basically data governance, to make sure that you are a better organization. And with that, you can save more money. Also, remember, Humanity Inc. gets young people to grow up to be conscious leaders. They will become employees, they will become owners of companies, they will become consumers, but the difference with them and us is they are very clear about only supporting companies that are sustainable.